The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's session on why you're not attracting women in technology and what you can do about it. Today's session is focused on some of the great internal and external initiatives we've seen from organisations who are building truly diverse teams. And yes, the D word again. We'll be providing you with steps to make your business more inclusive and explain what you can do to attract more women into your organisation. This is the first part of the series of sessions, and in today's talk, we're going to be specifically focusing on how to attract women in technology from an organisation's perspective. Hi, so this is me. My name's Harriet. I'm on the right, and this is Adele, my co-organiser of Women in Tech London, and I'm a community and diversity manager here at eSynergy. And obviously on the side, I run Women in Tech London, which is a meetup group of just under 800 people. And I also run the Mindful Leadership series. So before I go on to the webinar, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about eSynergy. As we've recently transitioned to a challenger consultancy, our vision is to deliver software more effectively through our community-driven approach. We provide cross-functional engineering teams via our communities to deliver cloud-native software. But community really is the backbone of our business, providing our clients with diverse delivery capability and an opportunity to engage with a technical audience interested in your story. And if anyone has any questions, do please fire them over via the chat box on the sidebar, and I'll answer them at the end. So let's start. In today's session, I want to cover the benefits of gender balanced teams, try and give you a little bit more of an insight into what women really want, and help you develop a strategy on how to attract more women into your organisation. And I'm hoping to be using real life case studies and examples throughout, just to help out a little bit more. So, the importance of gender balanced team. And despite hiring diverse teams being the right thing to do, it is also an opportunity for business profitability and innovation. And it's really just not in my opinion, there's stats to back this up. So in terms of profitability, in a recent Forbes study, inclusive teams were found to make better business decisions 87% of the time, 2 times faster, with half the meetings, and deliver 60% better results. And if we take an even deeper dive to gender balanced executive teams, a 2017 McKinsey study shows that companies in the top quartile for gender diversity were 21% more likely to experience above average profitability compared to those in the 4th quartile. In terms of innovation, another study showed that without diverse leadership, women are 20% less likely to win endorsement for their ideas. This problem does not lie simply with giving credit where credit is due, but by not endorsing ideas, a stale environment is created where innovation and creativity are not encouraged, and this may be reflected in your products and services. Furthermore, women buy 80% of all consumer goods, so building products built by men for men is just simply not logical. Examples of diversity not being present in business decisions included the standard office temperature that was developed in the 1960s around the average metabolic rate of the average man. And in a recent study, this showed it overestimated female metabolic rate by 35%. And what that really means is that the office, it tends to be about 5 degrees too cold for women. And I don't know if it explains for you why your female colleagues are wrapped in jumpers, blankets, and sometimes have hot water bottles in summer. And if this doesn't apply to you, you clearly have a very inclusive heating system, but I have heard some very funny stories. An example more serious than being cold at work is the fact that cars were designed using crash test dummies based on the average male. This has resulted in women being 47% more likely to be seriously injured, 71% moderately injured, and 17% more likely to die in an accident. We have now realised that not only are diverse teams critical to business profitability and innovation, they are also pivotal to products and service usability, and of course, in the example I last gave, safety. So the law. Besides from gender balanced teams being proven to improve profitability and innovation, there are also legal implications as to why, as an organisation, you should care about hiring diverse teams. The Gender Pay Gap report was set up as the government considered that its current rate of progress was simply too slow and is committed to closing the gender pay gap within a generation. The government also acknowledges the need for gender equality as a means to boost the economy. The underutilisation of women's skills is estimated to be costing the UK economy 1.3 to 2% of GDP per year. In other words, an additional expenditure of 41 billion per year, which is huge. So what is it about? The Gender Pay Gap Report, which came into effect on the 6th of April 2017, requires employees with 250 plus employees to publish comparative data on men and women's average pay on an annual basis. This is part of the wider Equality Act of 2010, which legally protects people from workplace discrimination and requires the implementation of reasonable adjustments where necessary. If employers fail to submit the data in accordance with the Equality and Human Rights Commission's guidance, this could lead to an unlimited financial penalty decided by the courts. This includes those not submitting the data and also those submitting inaccurate data. I personally find it very surprising to hear that more than 30 organisations have not filed accurate data for 2017, with an additional 725 organisations submitting or editing their submissions since last year's deadline. It has also been evidenced that some organisations have submitted impossible mathematical results, i.e. calculating more than 100% or entering zero fields, or simply by removing key employees from the report. Not that it's really a funny matter. In addition to mathematical inaccuracies, I've also personally witnessed organisations manipulating their gender pay gap report by having a gender balanced tech team with a female workers outsourced to consultancies in India. I've also seen other gender balanced tech teams where women occupy the majority of sort of project program manager roles within the team. Although this is technically correct, it does not feel like a true reflection of gender balanced tech teams, and certainly not how I would like to see a balanced tech team. I'd also like to add an observation that we have made at our meetup group, Women in Tech London. You do not need to be a coder to have a career in technology, and I really do firmly believe that. But in the same breath, that does not mean that organisations should be taking advantage of certain roles in technology that have a larger population of female applicants, such as project managers or analysts. This is a personal decision to each organisation and should be based on honesty and a reflection of your diversity initiatives. If you're struggling to have equal representation, you should review your entry-level requirements and your return to work schemes, as these are often a great starting point to diversify your core tech team's gender balance. In combination with the Tech Talent Charter, which I'll discuss later in the webinar, but actually it'd be quite good to do a quick poll now and find out whether your organisation has taken the pledge or is thinking about taking the pledge. So if you can just fire away your comments in the chat box, I can pick those up later. But what these initiatives do demonstrate is that the current gender pay gap and split of those working in the technology industry, which evidence the work still needed to be done by organisations to bridge both gaps. So, why organisations are not attracting women in technology? So we've witnessed organisations that have some great ideas and initiatives to attract women into tech roles. Equally, we've also experienced organisations that have an extensive external women in tech engagement marketing campaign, but are not reflecting this with real and physical impact. In the words of Elvis Presley, we'd like to see a little less conversation, a little bit more action, please. So it goes without saying, but having no strategy in place to start with is the first cause of failure. Recruiting the best technical talent is hard, and we get that, even without the added challenge of ensuring your team is gender balanced. With women making up only 17% of all tech roles, it is no wonder that organisations are experiencing the challenges of hiring a diverse workforce. Just like you would for any major project, you should create a bespoke strategy that works for you and your company. The Valuable 500 have done an amazing effort with coining this type of activity, diverse-ish. And this is basically where an organisation is selectively inclusive of some types of people within a company, group or business, depending on which type suits the company best. How I can sort of simplify it and describe it is by creating an illusion of inclusivity. Examples of an organisation having a diverse-ish women in tech strategy can be by only sponsoring conferences and events, but not having that real physical presence within the community or an internal support group. And in my experience, being diverse-ish is one of the most common reasons why organisations are struggling to attract women, despite feeling like they have a strategy in place. However, it is not the only reason why organisations are struggling. We quite often witness with our clients when an organisation does not have a dedicated diversity or inclusion role, or a corporate resource group, sometimes known as CRGs, also known as support groups or internal groups, but these tend to be created from the bottom up. And you're kind of like, well, great, my problems are solved. We've got people doing it off their own backs. But unfortunately, on the surface, it seems this way. But in reality, this is only excluding your already minority female employees. As the co-organiser of Women in Tech London and the Mindful Leadership Series and our internal diversity and awareness team, I know that these are full-time jobs. And it is unfair to expect and leave the responsibility of such an important equality challenge to an individual or team that is in addition to their everyday role and not reflected as part of their KPIs, so key performance indicators, responsibilities or deliverables. If your organisation already has a super CRG, then take a minute to thank them and ensure that these responsibilities are actually part of their job role. If you have the ability to allocate a budget to these initiatives, this will also help to raise your internal and external awareness about all the great things your organisation is doing within the women in tech community. This will also help you to retain those superstars. And remember, diversity breeds diversity. If your organisation does not have a dedicated diversity and inclusion role or CRG, this leads me to assume that you do not have a strategy in place, and the following sections on what women want and steps to becoming more inclusive is going to be a great place to start for you. So honesty. I get quite a lot of questions, and some of which are, what if my organisation doesn't have any women in tech? We can't create internal initiatives when we don't have anyone to benefit from them. How can I promote gender balance when I don't have a diverse workforce? Or maybe, what if I promote such initiatives and then they find out how non-diverse we are? It will make my company look so bad. Well, the truth is, everyone must start somewhere. We appreciate that organisations that lack a diverse workforce will experience a fear of bad publicity, but this is not a reason to disengage in such initiatives. If we are afraid to do anything, we just simply won't do anything at all. If you are an all-male organisation or do not have a D&I initiative, please don't fear. This is a great place to start, and you'll be more respected for starting somewhere than just not doing anything at all. And as mentioned, on average, women make up 17% of the tech workforce. If your organisation has less than 17%, it's time to step up your strategy as you're performing below the average benchmark of progression. If you are operating above this figure, there is no reason to feel comfortable and stop. You should still consider looking at your career ladder to ensure that women currently in your organisation are represented in all levels of the organisation. On top of these challenges, there is also the chance of failing. This normally comes from access fail, which is a combination of precedence, ignorance, lack of planning, no budget, austerity and negativity. And failing is often viewed in a negative light, but by understanding why organisations are failing to attract more women into technology, we can put a strategy in place to avoid these pain points and learn from our mistakes. In the second half of this webinar, I will discuss what women want in their tech careers and provide additional tips on how to make your organisation more inclusive. So firstly, ask yourselves, do you have developers that are female or do you have female developers? Why this is so important to distinguish is because you should value your tech team for their abilities rather than their gender. By describing your employee as a female developer, you are showcasing the importance of gender in her job role. This issue happens across industries. We often describe women as female doctors, female CEOs, female pilots, rather than what they should actually be called, which is doctors, CEOs, or pilots. Imagine the consequences for describing someone's religion, sexual preference, or ethnicity when describing their job title. It just doesn't bear thinking about. So why do we think it's acceptable to include gender in one's job title? And by removing gender from the equation, you are taking your first step to being gender blind and valuing your employees equally. This is particularly important when gender quotas are a common occurrence and may leave your employees questioning whether they were employed because of their KSAs or to meet the quota. This change of culture will be your first step to making your employees feel more comfortable and valued as an equal employee. Equal but different. So you're telling me now that you should treat men and women equally, but I'm also being told they want different things. And I never ever said it was going to be easy, but it is a proven fact that what men and women prioritise when looking for a new role tends to be different. To be able to accommodate these differences, you must first understand them. So I just want to give you a couple of figures here. So 47% of women favoured work-life balance highly compared to 39% of men. 49% of women favoured flexible working highly compared to 35% of men. 52% of women favoured a short commute highly compared to 43% of men. 48% of women favoured transparent full pay and benefits package highly compared to the 40% of men. And the final one of 44% of women favoured a transparent career ladder highly compared to 34% of men. And what is clear from these figures is that there is no common theme in women's there is one common theme, sorry, in women's employment priorities, and that's convenience. And without wanting to generalise here, these factors are particularly important when planning or raising a family. Men tend to earn more, crazy childcare costs, and the rise of the single parent family. So if we look at the facts, London has the largest gender employment gap for people of childbearing age across the advantaged parts of the EU. And according to the EU Statistics Agency, 73% of women between the ages of 35 and 44 are working full-time or part-time in London, compared to 92% of men. And it is no surprise that women are taking responsibility for childcare when the government's gender pay gap data showed 74% of firms paying higher rates to their male staff. In addition, there are around 1.7 million single-parent families in the UK, with one in four children living with one parent, and 9 in 10 of those being headed by a woman. With the added knowledge that the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development has calculated that England has the highest childcare costs and consists of approximately 40% of the average combined household's disposable income. So with this knowledge, take a look at your employment benefits and review how you can accommodate offering work-life balance, flexible working, transparent pay and benefits, and a career ladder progression to attract and retain more women into your organisation. If you already have an employment benefits to be proud of, then shout them from the rooftops. A fantastic way of doing this is by becoming an endorsed brand through Work 180, which is a website that offers women a transparent way of searching for their next role by revealing their paid paternity leave, pay equity, flexible work arrangements, employee engagement scores, etc., all before they need to apply. SPM. So SPM is a term that I've stolen from a very, very senior IT director when discussing their current gender ratio in their tech team, and is an abbreviation for stale, pale, male. A very, very honest answer to a very, very big problem, and a problem I'm sure they're not the only organisation to suffer from. And although SPM is a horrible reality of many technology teams, what I've learned from these organisations and some of our clients is that there is normally a common theme as to why they are suffering from a complete lack of diversity in their tech teams. And that's diversity attracts diversity. Pixar created a fantastic video about Purl's first day at work in a fast-paced, high-energy, bro-culture startup. She also just so happens to be a pink ball of yarn. And I'm sure some of you guys may have already seen this video, but the video basically gives a glimpse into being a minority in an SPM environment and allows you to begin to understand why this may not be appealing to the masses. I'm not able to play it because of the bandwidth, but I will share the link to the video after, but the name's here if you want to search it before. So if you have a diverse workforce, then this will naturally breed a diverse workforce. And at this point in your journey, you just need to ensure that your external image reflects your internal image. By this, I mean your career page, social media channels, job posts, descriptions, employment contracts, and benefits. They all must mirror your D&I values, diversity and inclusion values. If you are starting with an SPM team, as mentioned earlier, everyone must start somewhere. You must begin by ensuring you are representing and rewarding everyone equally. For example, if your senior management team on your careers page does not reflect a diverse team, the impact may be that minorities will feel underrepresented and may believe that there is no career progression for them at the company. Sorry there. I work with an organisation who has undertaken their journey to achieving gender balance. On International Women's Day, rather than promoting what the organisation's D&I strategy was and how great they were, we created an online webinar, just like I'm doing now, which helps to support inclusive working, to showcase how unconventional a career at said organisation can be and how amazing the women they had at different levels of the organisation were. We ended up having a business unit leader, a data scientist, someone who works in astronomics, and others being recognised for their women in tech achievements. It was a beautiful, beautiful session that showed the organisation valued their employees over some diverse-ish strategy, but also how amazing a career within that organisation could be, regardless of gender. Action. So where do I start? We've got diversity, we've got inclusion, empathy, awareness, and I get it, there's so many different definitions. Where do you start? To simplify it, I always say diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance. And recently at a conference that I attended, someone went one step further and said, it's not just being asked to dance, it's also being able to choose the music, which I thought was a really nice way of describing inclusion. And sometimes it can feel that being diverse and inclusive is a minefield. I mean, only try and imagine accepting to speak on this webinar. And it's important to remember that it's okay not to know everything, and I'll be the first person to admit that. The most important thing to remember is that empathy costs nothing, and being open to learning and raising awareness within your organisation is crucial to turning your organisation into a safe space for everyone. Some of the best organisations that I've been humbled to be on their journey are those that make diversity at the heart of their recruitment process. You know, when you have achieved inclusion where there is no longer needed a strategy, there's no strategy no longer needed. You just celebrate your amazing team. So in this last section, I will showcase some of the best ways organisations I've worked with have made steps to become more inclusive. Some I've already mentioned, but others will be new. So before you can take steps to being inclusive, you must first understand and define what diversity and inclusion means to your business. Be conscious that D&I definitions can differ from person to person, and it's important to have a session that scopes out the common values within these differences. For every business we have supported, we have found that each business has their own definition of being diverse and inclusive, and this can range from empathy being at the forefront, policy-led initiatives, diversity being the heart of recruitment, as mentioned, or policies being created for the people by the people. As discussed, some of the most successful D&I initiatives have been when diversity has been at the heart of the recruitment process. And you've probably heard the following statistic. Men apply for a job when they meet only 60% of the qualifications, but women apply only if they meet 100% of them. As a result, it is important to evaluate your job descriptions to ensure that you do not have any unnecessary KPIs described that are just not required for the job. So, for example, if you do not require 10 years of Python experience working in the financial sector, just don't put it. You know, a technical test could quite easily replace it and evidence their Python ability instead. Equally, if you describe the environment as competitive or desire some sort of entrepreneurial individual, do please expect a minority of women to apply. Quite often, women lack confidence in themselves. Terms such as imposter syndrome are quite common here. And they may well be competitive or entrepreneurial, but unlikely to advertise or admit to themselves of having these qualities. We've actually found that career and networking evenings to be a great way of meeting diverse, talented individuals. They remove the emphasis on job descriptions and self-promotion and replace it with a way of meeting the team and finding more about the individual in a very relaxed manner. More recently, I've witnessed organisations removing candidates from the interview process for having gaps in their CV. I do agree that this can be a signal of an unreliable individual, but I just do not agree that they should be removed without finding out their reasoning for it. And a great example of this was the last career and networking evening we ran, where a female candidate was ruled out on the grounds of having gaps in her CV. As suspected, it was due to a family commitments, and we decided to reinvite her to the session, sorry. I was later delighted to find out that she was one of the 10 candidates out of a total of 30 that attended the evening that proceeded to interview stage, and I still have my fingers crossed for her. And that was just picking up the phone and having a 2-minute conversation with her just to find out a little bit more about her background. It takes no time at all. When an organisation or an individual complains about the lack of female applicants they have applying for their roles, I always reply the same list of online and offline women in tech communities. And more often than not, they've never heard of a single one. There is no right or wrong way in attracting a diverse team. But remember, if the mountain will not come to Mohammed, then Mohammed must go to the mountain. And use this quote to empower your hiring teams to go to the women in tech communities and look in those right places. This is a crucial moment where you can evaluate the communities you are part of and how you are positioning your organisation within them. So get your pens out, and I can just reel off a couple of online and offline communities that I found particularly useful and actively engaged with. So of course, shameless self-promotion, we've got Women in Tech London, which we always love people getting involved with, whether that being a speaker, a host, or some idea they want to come and help. You've got Code First Girls, which is amazing initiative set up to help more women learn to code. You've got Ada's List, which is an online sort of email forum that people communicate on. I believe it's something ridiculous like 7,000 members strong. You've got Women Who Code, London Tech Ladies, another meetup group, and of course, again, my Mindful Leadership Breakfast, which again, we'd love to have people a part of. So I just want to have a quick discussion about gender quotas versus targets, and this can be quite controversial, and I know that people have their own stance on it. And we've seen gender quotas as part of organisation strategies so many times to improve their gender balance. And although this is something that companies should not force, we are firm believers of hiring the right person. And targets are a great replacement for gender quotas. From my understanding, bear with me here, gender quotas are set numbers that must be met, even if it leads to hiring underqualified people. Instead, because gender targets are not fixed, they create a goalpost for hiring teams to aim towards and encourage them to be looking in those right places I mentioned for that right individual without compromising on quality. Ensuring you have qualified individuals is vital to maintaining inclusive culture. Not only will the underqualified individual feel they were only hired to meet a gender quota, and I've heard that so many times, even if it's simply not true, but their colleagues will equally not be happy about the extra work they need to do to ensure projects are complete. So it's basically a lose-lose situation here. But it's not always about recruitment, and please don't forget about retention. It's important to value the employees you already have. If you don't want to focus all your energy and resources on recruiting more women, you don't want to focus all your energy on and resources on recruiting more women into tech for your existing team just to leave anyway. And as we've already discussed, the different employment benefits women are prioritised, which I'll repeat again, are work-life balance, flexible working, transparent pay and benefits, and a career ladder to attract and retain more women into your organisation. It is equally important to ensure that any new benefit you create to attract candidates should also be offered to existing employees. In addition to employee benefits, we have also discussed internal CRGs that allow minorities to feel part of a community. If this is already in place at your organisation, then ensure that it's being promoted out so everyone has the opportunity to be part of it. If this is not the case and you don't have a CRG created, then creating an internal support group is a great way of improving retention whilst also improving culture. And it doesn't always need to be led, it doesn't need to have an individual to start it up. Please remember that. So round up your allies. I gave the example earlier of the International Women's Day webinar where we showcased their employees' unconventional paths into technology. And it really is a great way of showcasing your brand and culture through the power of storytelling. I really do applaud you to encourage your champions to share their story to showcase your brands. And please do not forget that women in tech champions do not need to be female. Champions and allies come in all shapes and sizes, and it is important to remember that preaching to the converted is never going to improve your gender balance. And I can talk to you about this from a personal experience. So we've suffered a similar issue with our meetup group, Women in Tech London. We experienced reverseism, and so did our attendees, which is when we were challenged for excluding men. Now, our code of conduct has always been and will always be, this community welcomes anyone who would like to join, especially allies of the cause. We only ask that you respect that this is a safe space for anyone who identifies as female. But as a result, we've decided to change our name to reflect our personal views and gender balance. And this will be announced next week, so everyone stay tuned. We've got some great, exciting things going on. Now, when implementing a D&I initiative, have you ever heard, well, why should I do that? It only benefits one person, or the rest of the office just won't understand. But it's time to challenge these assumptions that these initiatives only benefit the minority, and that improving conditions for the minority impact the mass. This theory is actually known as the curb cut effect, and is where making public services accessible to people with disabilities helps everyone. But this is not just about disabilities. It can be used just in general. So I can share an experience we had at eSynergy recently. Our workforce has almost about 20% known neurodiversities. This difference in thinking is known to not work so well in loud, brightly lit work environments, aka our sales floor. And we recently turned one of our meeting rooms into a quiet room. When it opened, people did not understand what it was for, and in a recent review, people thought it was only for those that had a diagnosed condition and did not want to abuse it. It has now been used by all levels of staff, from people that suffer from migraines, managers that need to work without interruption, concentration, to work on confidential documents, and sometimes even to process thoughts when their personal life is just getting a bit much. When explaining why quiet spaces are so important to employees that did not understand, we asked them, why do you put your earphones on in the tube? We rarely got the answer that it was to listen to music. It was normally to relax after work, to get some personal space, maybe just to focus. But this same logic can be used when implementing things such as sort of prayer rooms or other D&I initiatives. Now, if we look at the reverse of this, for community activities that are designed for the masses, small steps can be taken to make them more inclusive. After all, diversity attracts diversity, and I do know that I keep saying this, so I apologise, but it's clearly a key takeaway. Take the example of a tech meetup, normally beers and pizza, right? In fact, I was at a conference last night, it is normally beers and pizza. So for pregnant women, religions such as Islam, dietary conditions such as celiac disease or lactose intolerances, or people that just need to get home because they've got family commitments and can't stay after work, they miss out. But it's such a shame, because it's such an, it's a great way to build bonds with your colleagues. It's a great way to make new connections or widen your personal networks. But they're also learning opportunities, i.e. career opportunities. So simple changes such as having lunch and learns, or turning it from an evening event to a breakfast meetup, and just offering things like soft drinks and more varied or diverse catering options can make these tech meetups much more inclusive. So I just want to have a quick look at the poll that we sent earlier, and it seems that there are some of you that are engaged, and that's really great to hear. But for those that aren't, taking the pledge with the Tech Talent Charter and encouraging gender balance is a great. Sorry, I just got confused there with the poll. Yeah, we're a very proud signatory of the Tech Talent Charter, and we really do encourage others to take the pledge and show their commitment to bridging the gender gap in the technology industry through the Tech Talent Charter. This collaborative initiative ensures that we are questioning why we have an unbalanced workforce, and makes us think about what we can do internally to try and solve the problem. So I will be sharing that link after if anyone else wants to join us. So apologies here. So I just want to finish this session with a shout out to anyone listening that is thinking about a career in tech or going for that promotion. If they have family, friends or colleagues that just need reminding they can do and be anything, it's a great video and I'll share it after. So please stay in contact with me so we can continue the conversation. I'll be sharing the slides, the 2 videos that I mentioned, and the resource list that I used. And if anyone's needing any extra support, do please get in contact and I'll be happy to help. Now I'm going to go on to questions now. So as mentioned, do please just fire them away via the chat. I'll just give you guys a couple of minutes to get them over. Okay, so I've got a first one here. What are the top 3 takeaways from the webinar today? So if I was going to take away anything, the first one would be it's the concept about being equal and different. Is really do look at your benefits packages and what you're offering, as it's it's very clear that women do tend to value different things, and it's all around convenience. But these will benefit anyone, so it's well worth looking at. So back to the curb cut effect and making sure that when you do create initiatives that they benefit everyone, and sharing that knowledge to people that having such D&I initiatives are not just going to benefit that one person in the office or whatever, really. And it's not just about gender here, it's just in general in terms of diversity. And remember that these initiatives will always benefit your culture anyway, so it's not just a D&I piece, it's just about creating a safer, happier work environment. And also benefits, no one wants to be in a SPM office, right? People enjoy meeting different people and learning about different cultures. So it's important to remember those things. So I've just got another question in here. So I want to encourage more women to study to become developers. How do we reach those people who have never considered getting into tech before and have an idea that it's something they can't do? So it depends if you've got the resources or not. If you've got the resources to be able to go it alone, universities are, not universities, sorry, well, universities will be, but primary schools and secondary schools will be more than happy for you to contact them, and maybe a member of your staff can go and do a talk, or you can liaise with them and try and organise some sort of like little code camp or a session within the school, and they'd be more than happy to do that. Equally, you've got fantastic initiatives such as Innovate Her, which target those making their secondary education decisions, and they're doing some fantastic initiatives. They're currently up north, but they're coming to London, and of course I can put you in contact with those as well if you need be, if you are not able to do that on your own. I hope I've answered that okay. Someone's asked if I can share info around my Women in Tech meetup group. I'd love to help and get involved. That is fantastic. That goes to everyone who's listening on the webinar now. Of course, we'll send the link. Like I mentioned, we're changing our name, which I'll announce next week. And we're currently in the process of organising the next session, which I believe will be in King's Cross. But if anyone's got ideas and want to come and do a talk or want to get involved somehow, yeah, great, I'll share after, but equally my email's there, so just reach out to me. Sorry, it's quite a long question here. Okay, so we've got a lovely lady here that has a 2,000 strong network for women in tech. That's another, it's another fantastic organisation to get involved with. So that's 10 digital ladies on the webinar here. Big shout out to them. We find that helping women build confidence in their own opinions is really key to creating a fully inclusive workforce. Agree massively. The question here, though, is what initiatives have you come across that are particularly good at supporting women really step into their power? So my first answer really here is imposter syndrome, and that was actually the last event that we did, and that we did a session on, but I think it's a little bit too obvious here. So it's not just about that individual. Colleagues can get involved. So I was recently nominated by my colleague for the Diversity Advocate Young Future Stars or something award, and they nominated me, and that's so empowering that I've got my organisation behind me. So think about what an organisation can do to actually support women in them feeling more empowered, rather than the individual having to feel more to make themselves more empowered. But equally, I was at a conference 2 weeks ago. I will name it because it was brilliant. It was called the Rise Conference. It's about inclusivity in the creative industry, which of course includes technology. And basically we did a 200-person fishbowl, and basically what that was people were invited one at a time to basically say what their imposter syndrome was, whether that be introducing the name of their imposter syndrome if they created a name for it, whether that just be given an example of when they felt like it, and everyone just claps each other, and it just makes you shake off of that nervousness and not feeling empowered. So I'd really give, I can't remember who created it. If you email me after, I might be able to go back through my notes, but it's called a fishbowl and it's brilliant. Got another question here. So how do you attract senior level women outside of the benefits on offer? So I'm assuming, I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but I'm assuming, i.e. rather than a higher salary, how do you attract more senior level women? So this is a tricky one, and I get asked this quite a lot. I think Work 180 is a fantastic way so that people can see those benefits immediately. By benefits, I mean other things other than money, which are, as we've mentioned, incredibly important, such as flexible working, and those more convenient sides of being able to have a family or really a life outside of work. But I applaud you. Please look at your career ladder. I was working with an organisation, and when you went onto their senior manager page, it was basically, I'm going to use the term again, but SPM. And I was actually speaking to quite a junior member of staff as well in the meeting. And I said to her, I said, when you see this, how do you feel? And she just said, it just makes me wonder how I can have that, whether I can have that position there. And equally, think about it from that individual who's applying as a senior level member of staff. If she looks at the career page, and sees that SPM environment, all she's going to see is that battle. So have a look and see what you can do sort of within your career ladder or on your pages to really show to really show what you're doing. Can you bring mentors or coaches in from outside or inside? Can you create an internal mentoring scheme? I don't know. It depends on what your resources are, and it is really personal. But also have a look at return to work schemes. If you have one, great. Have a look at it still. But if you don't have one, are there women that potentially would like to come back into the workforce that may have had a career break that would be offering a fantastic senior level, with such experiences of having a family and things like that? They may be in a much better position to be at a management level rather than that technical role if they've lost touch on what's hot and things like that. So have a look what you can do that's sort of slightly more outside the box. Sorry, that was very long-winded. Just having a look now. Okay, love this question. So I've got Fab. I'm also interested in the career changes. Women in their 20s, 30s and 40s who are capable of a tech career but grew up thinking they couldn't do it. How do we empower these women? Love that. I mean, think people like Code First Girls who are obviously targeting 18 to 25 or straight out of uni, or that's roughly the requirements. Obviously they're doing their thing to be able to target them, to say that you can have a career in tech even if your degree's in drama or literature. And Personally, I've actually been through the Code First beginners course and Python course and can tell you that it's such an empowering experience. But from an organisational level, I mentioned it before with the International Women's Day webinar and having those people from different careers. Look at the unconventional paths in tech. Look at those tech roles that aren't necessarily software developers or coders and say, how can I create an external message to show that you can actually have a very varied career within my organisation? And for me personally, I think that the tech industry and working in tech, you know, it's so creative, and it, you know, whether that be if you do want to take a career and look at front end programming, that's all to do with the design. UX is all design, and being things like project managers and program managers, again, they're creative. You're thinking about outside the box. You're being innovation solvers. So look at what you're doing for your social media, on your careers page, or even run a webinar like this. We'd be more than happy to support you on saying, this is all the fun things that you could be doing. And, you know, really do share that story. So. Sorry, these are quite long messages. So I'm going to read this out because I think it's actually, I will try and answer it, but it is just a very general view, and it's how a lot of people are feeling. So I work for a tech organisation in a senior business development role, talking to corporate organisations about their tech needs around AI, machine learning, etc. I've done a course in coding, but recognise that I seem to work at my best in the relationship space between the developer space, hence this tech route. I'm still in a gender minority area, and I always felt I was a woman in tech, but now not feeling tech enough. Where do I fit in the stats? Am I in tech? It's not for me. For me, it's not for me to say. But firstly, why does it even matter? But take my role, for example. I'm a community and diversity manager. I help organisations engage within communities, mainly specialising in women in tech communities. Now, although I've also taken a coding course, but don't code, I would still say that I'm a woman in tech because I work in the technology industry. But yeah, I would just say, what does it matter? But I would say that you are. I hope that answers it. Got some thank yous there. And I think we'll round that up there. So thank you everyone. Again, you've got my contact details, and I look forward to connecting with you all. Thanks.